Perfect. Welcome everyone to the side event of the World Circular Economy Forum. The World Circular Economy Forum is co-organized by the Government of Canada and the Finnish Innovation Fund Sitra, and it's hosted for the first time in North America. And the forum really brings together forward-looking thinkers and doers and presents the world's leading game changers in the circular economy. And our side event of the World Circular Economy Forum is focused on how can circular innovations create value, and what is the role of incubator and accelerator programs to scale and grow circular innovations. And we'll also present sort of an outline for a circular incubation program. There's a lot of activity on the circular economy in Europe, as I mentioned, with Finland, with Sitra, the Netherlands, Scotland, and various other countries. And it's exciting to see some of the concepts of the circular economy coming over to North America, to the US, Canada, Mexico, etc. So we're very excited to kind of share some of the thoughts in terms of circular innovation, circular entrepreneurship, and how we can kind of jump on the concept of the circular economy to really create some value here in the US. So I'll start off by discussing kind of circular economy innovations and the need for innovation ecosystems to support the circular economy. And a bit of background about myself. I'm currently doing a PhD at the University of Milan in Italy and researching the scaling of circular innovations. And I'm also part of Tondo. It's an association based in Italy to promote the circular economy. And Tondo is a nonprofit organization. We're trying to create ecosystems for the circular economy by developing a bridge between universities, startups, corporates, institutions, people. And we're focusing on creating knowledge on the circular economy and educating people about the topic, but also creating opportunities for innovations and entrepreneurial projects to support emerging technologies, emerging materials, and new business models. And to start things off, we've seen that disruptive innovation is sort of key to the circular economy transition. It really facilitates the widespread adoption and diffusion of these innovations can really accelerate circular economy transition. And startups in particular are really key to this process because they utilize new business models, new strategies, new materials, and create new products that can really inspire other organizations to see how things can be done differently. Compared to sort of larger firms, they can really inspire the next level of circularity. And what we've seen over the past sort of 2 decades is an explosion in sustainable and circular entrepreneurship. There's a lot of sort of funding for green technologies by VCs, by various funders, and there's a lot of circular businesses that are focusing on these aspects. But the problem sort of that we're facing is not the creation of new circular innovations. It's really a problem of scaling. There's sort of statistics that show that the chances of a new enterprise reaching a scale-up stage are around 0.5%, and with circular or sustainable companies, especially, it's even more difficult. And we've also seen that 66% of sustainable product and service innovations are very small niche, and they're utilized in small markets. And there are sort of various factors from government to supply chain to product, industry, and market factors that can really help circular entrepreneurs cross that valley of death and grow their businesses. So it really sort of begs the question of how can we create the right ecosystems and programs to support the growth and scaling of circular entrepreneurs and startups. And one leading example is the City of Austin and their circular economy program, which has been gaining momentum. And I'm delighted to introduce Skyra from the City of Austin Circular Economy Program to sort of get our insights and perspectives on how we can support circular entrepreneurship. So welcome, Skyra.
Good morning, Shyam. Thank you for inviting me.
So I wanted to ask if you could tell us a bit more about the City of Austin's circular economy program, how it kind of got started, and how you're sort of supporting circular businesses in the city.
Yeah, so Well, I'm excited to be with you all this morning, and I want to talk a little bit about our circular economy program. So our circular economy program started in 2011 in Austin Resource Recovery, which is kind of what other cities would know as their solid waste services department, right? And it was really a collaboration between two departments. It was a collaboration between Austin Resource Recovery and our economic development department. And so we recognized that, our council recognized that zero waste was going to be an important component of the city of Austin moving forward. And so they wanted to codify that. And so at that point was when they worked on creating the zero waste master plan was launched at that time. And as a part of the study of that plan of like kind of getting a snapshot of where we are so that we can set goals for where we want to be in 2040, they recognize that economic development and supporting businesses who wanted to incorporate circular economy into their business models was going to be an important component of getting us to our zero waste goals, right? It wasn't just a government thing that we had to take on. It wasn't just a citizen buy-in. We really needed our business community to buy in as well. And so as a part of that study, there was an economic development component. And so we created what was originally the Recycling Economic Development Program, which turned into our Circular Economy Program. And so as a result of that, we had a position created, which is, I fill that role now, that's a liaison position between Austin Resource Recovery and the Economic Development Department. And so that's kind of the work that we've been doing in collaboration with our Economic Development Department. Just for a little bit of context and data, circular businesses are really part of a growing industry in Austin with a large economic impact supporting over $1 billion in local economic activity and over 6,300 jobs. And so, knowing that and having that data, we know that it's really good for us to invest resources into doing that work. And so my specific work is focused around supporting those economic development businesses. And that's really how our circular economy program operates. We're a team of about 4, mighty and passionate team of 4. And part of our work is really on behavioral change, right? How do we work with our residents, our citizens, to incorporate more zero waste and circular practices into their everyday lives? But we also wanted to take on the added component of supporting our circular economy businesses at the same time. So how do we provide entrepreneur, small business, and startup resources to support our business community in transforming their business into a circular economy business? So from that aspect, right, the city is tackling zero waste. We're providing resources for our citizens to incorporate behavioral change. And because of their behavioral change, hopefully they'll want to invest in our circular economy businesses at the same time. So that's kind of a little bit about the work that we are looking to do here in the city of Austin and how it got started.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what do you see as sort of some of the challenges that some of these entrepreneurs are facing as they sort of create circular businesses, or even maybe transition their businesses to become more circular and sustainable?
That's a great question, Cheyenne. So one of the first things that I want to mention is like small business challenges are kind of small business challenges on the front end, right? So we have businesses who are having, they need capital, they need infrastructure support, marketing, all of the things that kind of small businesses need. But when you're talking specifically about the small niche of circular businesses that's so targeted, it requires, first of all, sometimes it requires special equipment. So those small businesses need to make a huge capital investment into buying this equipment that'll either, there'll be processes, right? It'll take material, break it down before it hits a manufacturer, or that remanufacturer needs some type of process to take that processed material and melt it down and turn it into something else. So part of it is the very specialized nature of having special machinery to be able to support the circularity of their business or whatever product that they are creating. The other component of it is circular economy is really a new and emerging concept, right? So a lot of people don't really understand or get what it means, particularly in our investment community. So when you're talking about getting investment for the capital costs of creating and supporting and sustaining a circular business, right? Really explaining and educating the investor community on patient capital in terms of not just economic gain, but environmental support, right? We're supporting the planet. We want to make sure that, of course, there's an economic gain because businesses need to be successful in order to employ people, which is our ultimate goal, right? So really getting our investor community to understand what does it mean to invest in a circular company. That's really important. Another one I think that's really important is workforce. So when you're talking about certain circular economy companies, like we have a 3D printing company and We have a company that where you can rent tools instead of buying them, right? They need the same things that other companies like Tesla and Dell need, right? They need welders, they need engineers, but the amount of money that those companies can pay for those types of skills and talent is a little bit, it's not on par with what others here in the city of Austin are able to afford. So really figuring out how can we support the workforce, like the very specific niche workforce that's going to be needed for some of these circular economy companies. So, because while it's welding and it's engineering, right, it's circular economy focused. So there's going to be some specialized training that's needed in the process. And so those are like kind of the top three things that I'm seeing here in the circular economy industry in Austin that's kind of presenting maybe some challenges that we're trying to work with our business community to solve.
Oh, that's very cool. And what kind of lessons, I guess, have you learned as a city in implementing this program that perhaps other cities in the U.S. or North America in general can learn from? And are there sort of lessons that you've looked to perhaps cities in Europe or abroad as well to kind of build your program and your plan?
Well, I want to say first that like Europe sets the standard. I think in the US, we're just trying to catch up at this point. So Europe is really kind of the standard of what we're looking to in terms of bringing circular economy. They're kind of well ahead of us, right? But some of the things I think that are what we call kind of hallmarks for the city of Austin that I think works really well here is, of course, we have the support of our council, right? Our government has supported it in terms of what we call codifying it. So creating policy around it. So as I mentioned, we have our Zero Waste Master Plan, which was adopted in 2011. And it lays out goals for the next 3 decades with the primary objective being zero waste. And so from that, we could really create some really circular economy focused goals, because not only is the team committed to circular economy, but it's codified in kind of our processes here as a city, right? It's all people already bought in, basically. And so I would really suggest that other communities who are looking to adopt this really get the support of their council, of the mayor, of other department heads, and incorporating this into the part of their city. We also have our universal recycling ordinance, which was adopted by the Austin City Council back in 2010. And it's really intended to increase the life and reduce the things that are ending up in our landfills, right? So it affects property owners, and it really ensures that employees and businesses have convenient access to recycling and composting. So once you're a property owner in the city of Austin, the URO kicks in and they submit plans every year to tell us how much waste they're diverting, what waste they're diverting, how much they're composting, and those types of things, right? So policy is a really big component of that. I know a lot of communities are probably struggling or trying to figure out COVID as well. So another thing that we have done is, as a part of our economic recovery strategy, right, we are incorporating some circular economy principles that support not only the economic stability and sustainability of the city of Austin, but how also, of course, are we going to continue to take care of the environment and the social component as we're implementing that. So pretty sure everyone has heard of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and their Build Back Better, but we wanted to look at it also from that lens that I was telling you about, from circular economy lens. So what we did was, when we were going through our economic recovery strategy, we asked the question, how can the needs of our communities be better served by circular economy models? And how can we build our city to be home to a thriving people in a thriving place whilst respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet? So how do we incorporate all of those things into our economic recovery strategy? And so we were able to partner with the Thriving Cities Initiative and C40 Cities, which is a European organization as well, right? To incorporate those concepts and practices into our economic recovery strategy. So I think the theme here, the through line, is that we've codified a lot of these things. They're in our policies. They're incorporated into the work that we're doing with our local business community, which really helps to make it more successful.
Oh, wow. Okay. And no, the C40 is a great program, and yeah, I think they've really incorporated circular economy and sustainability in sort of their plans, and it's great to see the kind of sharing of knowledge that happens between different cities as well.
Yes.
So really exciting to hear. And in addition to businesses, do you see that there's a need to kind of bring in other stakeholders? Have you guys had to kind of incorporate a variety or diversity of different kinds of organizations in order to kind of create that ecosystem to support the business community in their sort of push to circular economy?
Yeah, so we don't just work with business, we also work with our nonprofit organizations as well, who are like our reuse and thrift stores, our shoe repair, or our repair companies, our cobblers. We've also incorporated our department, so our department director, so our Office of Sustainability is also a stakeholder. We're now working on, the Office of Sustainability is working on a food resiliency plan, which is also going to cover reducing waste at different parts of the supply chain, right? But as a part of that, they're looking to create what we call resilience hubs. And so how do we make those resilience hubs and get our neighborhoods and our communities and people who live in those areas to be more incorporated into our circular economy program? So how do we take our behavior change model and work with our Office of Sustainability on not only making stable supply chains when in the event of disaster or global pandemics, right? But ongoing support for creating stability and sustainability in terms of how are we reducing waste? How are we keeping our materials to the highest and best use? And how are we reusing materials inside of our circular economy? So that's kind of some other ways that we're incorporating additional stakeholders. We also, we're getting ready to do a series of roundtables with our business communities and our stakeholders, right? So how do we bring in more departments through the city of Austin, like Austin Energy, Austin Water? They all have a role to play in this work as well, and continue to work collaboratively to address some of these issues, because it's going to take a multi framework for us to really get to the circular economy here.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, do you find that, you know, as a city, there's kind of obviously there's a focus you can have in the city itself, but are some of the things that you guys are doing also impacting or influencing the policy decisions and behaviors of the state of Texas, or, you know, the other parts of the country that you guys are kind of integrated with within that ecosystem?
That's a great question. So we work with the STAR, which is the State of Texas Alliance on Recycling, who used to really just be focused around, right, the recycling industry, but they're now expanding to incorporate components of circular economy. And so they just recently did a study with the state of Texas. It's called a market development study. And it's really identifying, like, what are our areas of opportunity in terms of not just recycling, but circular economy models, or resource recovery, or resource reuse models, right? That can be deployed throughout the state of Texas. What infrastructure it currently exists, what infrastructure is missing, what type of investment is it going to take for us to get to whatever goal that we've set. So that study is kind of in process right now in collaboration with STAR, which I think is really awesome. Another community or city that we recently started talking to was the city of Phoenix, who's also doing some work around circular economy. And so having a conversation with them around how can two cities really partner to say, this is what we're both looking to do in our communities. We kind of have different communities, but we're looking to achieve the same goal. How can we set kind of benchmarks or star marks, or to say, like, this is what a circular company looks like. This is what it takes for a company to be circular. How do we help businesses transition from a traditional linear model into a circular model? And how do we do that with two cities working together on that? So there's definitely some collaboration inside of the state of Texas, and then some collaboration with our partners outside of the state of Texas as well. We're really excited about it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what are some of the I guess like future plans to kind of keep the momentum going with the circular economy? I know that you mentioned there's sort of a big focus on transitioning circular businesses. Do you guys also have like incubation programs to support new entrepreneurs, new businesses that are kind of entering the market to help them kind of get the right resources and support?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Of course we do. So we have this program called the Challenge Studio, which is our incubator, and it's a partnership with our small business program and our economic development department. And so our Challenge Studio is really designed to help entrepreneurs better understand circular economy challenges and identify innovative solutions, right? So like we present a problem, and as entrepreneurs, they figure out what a business building solution would be. And then we support them to build and test prototypes and start and grow new viable businesses from that, right? So it's a 9-month incubator program. We provide wraparound support. They have office space. They have funding to go out and test those models that we provide for them. They have mentorship And it's a really intensive program for them to go through. So that's one component. The other thing that we have is what we call our reverse pitch competition, which focuses on turning raw materials that are really slated to become waste into the foundation of new business ventures, right? So what that looks like is any local organization or institution or business can pitch some kind of byproduct or something that's ending up in the landfill, some kind of raw material that entrepreneurs can then compete, right, to create a business around repurposing that material that's ending up in the landfill. And so through that competition, we have a mini accelerator program, right? So they hear the pitch from the business of what the material is. They decide what kind of business they want to form around taking that material and turning it into a new product. And then they compete to get their idea selected, and then we take them through an accelerator process to validate it, to get some market studies, and those types of things. And then it culminates in what we call our Circular Austin Showcase, where we get our investor community to come and hear our businesses pitch those ideas so that we're creating emergent or new entrants into the market while we're also supporting our businesses who are already established inside of the circular economy industry. So we have those programs. And then for businesses who are already existing here, we have incentive programs for them, right? So we have wage reimbursement for people who are hiring. We have our targeted hiring program, which really supports our unsheltered community and our differently abled community and BIPOC identities. There's our property tax reimbursement incentive as well. And then of course we have partnerships with our chambers and workforce solutions for any kind of workforce development or training programs that are necessary. So we're really trying to make sure that we're supporting it from all angles and then constantly getting feedback and iterating in the process, right? So my job is to meet one-on-one with those businesses to say, are you experiencing any challenges? Are there any opportunities for growth? And what are the barriers to those two things? And how can the city of Austin work in collaboration with them to eliminate or mitigate those barriers as much as possible? So we want to make sure our programming is really meeting the needs of our community so we can create a strong circular economy ecosystem here.
Yeah, that's incredible, especially what you mentioned about the kind of incubation and support programs there, because I remember, I think it was the Netherlands, and it started in Amsterdam, but kind of progressed to the rest of the government. They have this really interesting initiative called, I think, Startup in Residence, where they basically propose various challenges that the city has and then invites entrepreneurs to kind of solve them through existing solutions or new solutions that are sustainable, circular, et cetera. And then really provides them with the right support in order to help them create more effective solutions to address that. So yeah, I find that really interesting, the kind of ability for governments and local governments especially to kind of utilize the policy power that they have, but also the kind of interface they have with the business community to really help them grow and scale.
Absolutely, and we think that's really a good recipe for success, right? You have the policy, you have the team who's interacting pretty regularly with the business community, and then you have the support programs based off of the data and information you're getting from the community, the business community, right? So we're really making sure that we're responding to the needs and we're not just creating programs to create programs. So yeah, it's fun. Love my team, love working with our businesses here, and would love to see it replicated across the country.
No, that's exciting. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing some of the insights from the city of Austin.
Absolutely.
And yeah, really looking forward to seeing the kind of outcomes of the great work that you guys do, and indeed hope to see that it gets replicated into programs across the country in different cities as well.
Same.
So thank you so much.
Thanks, Shyam. I appreciate it.
And that's actually a great segue into our sort of next section. Happy to introduce Joan Popolo from the Action Innovation Network to just sort of discuss the role of incubators and accelerators. So yeah, over to you, Joan.
Yeah, thank you, Shyam. And it is a good segue because Skyri, you're so very proactive in Austin about all of these things and have a great model to share. And I'm learning a lot from what you're saying right here today. And what we have in our small region in New England is a network of technology business incubators, who we are, Action Innovation Network, really focused on technologies. And I'd like to talk a little bit about today, introducing our organization and also sort of the plans we have and how we're starting to think about similar things that you're already doing down there, but that we might be able to implement in many of our incubators and accelerators in our region. And so I'll just ask you to forward the slide, Shyam, since you're in control there. Just a little bit about our organization. We're a 10-year-old nonprofit, and our focus is on supporting the needs of technology business incubators in our New England region, especially in the eastern part of New England. And our incubators are supporting technologies anywhere from clean tech to life sciences, robotics, marine and maritime, aerospace, and advanced materials. So a broad range of technologies. So as you're talking and I'm thinking about, how much more difficult is it to introduce the circular strategies into these very heavy deep tech types of companies. So next. So what we do as an organization for these incubators is bring them together in a collaborative way to share best practices for incubator management and to share even resources among incubators as a network. So all the incubators are geographically in different regions and have different things to contribute, have different facilities, have different instrumentation in their facilities and so on. And so bringing them all to the table provides a really nice pool of opportunities for startups to be part of this network. So with that, I think, we could be well positioned to be able to offer some of these programs, or at least learning opportunities for the incubators and accelerators, as well as their companies, into how to adopt some of these circular strategies from the very beginning, from the inception of their companies. Next slide. Just a quick little map about some of the many incubators and accelerators that are located in our region. So like I said, I think we have a good handle in our small region, which is probably, I don't know, some small part of the state of Texas, land-wise, but so that's why we bring all of the New England states together to work together on this. So we are really a regional organization. And, with all of our incubators, I think we offer a great opportunity to start implementing some of these programs. Just the next slide, please. Just as one that we're starting to do, we do have a federal grant that we work under from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration. This grant is really related to international companies, and for those international companies that are looking to the U.S. for new market opportunities, we provide programs for them. And the next program that we're having, which will be in the October-November timeframe, is actually around circularity. And so we are attracting international companies from anywhere in the world who are developing technologies with a circular base to access our networks here in the US as they look to expand their business opportunities to the US. We are working together with partners, both academic institutions, corporate institutions, and government institutions to do this. So that's just one of the programs that we're starting to do to bring this to light in our area. And I've brought with me today a speaker from one of our member incubators, North Shore Interventures, Trish Fleming, and she is really the perfect person to bring into this conversation because she is the director of mentoring at one of the incubators. And I'd just like to go through with Trish some questions that I have for her that can really shed some light into this as well. We do see the incubators and accelerators as key organizations to help in the transition from linear to circular by enabling the companies that are in those incubators to integrate circular strategies into their businesses. And NSIV I brought as an example because they are known for their mentoring program, one of the stronger mentoring programs in any of the incubators that we support within our network. And so Trish, I think, is well positioned to answer some of these questions for us about how we can help these companies learn from the beginning to think about. So Skyra's programs, your incubator is very dedicated for circular economy, but ours are not. And so we need to sort of integrate that and to bring that focus into them. And so how do we do that? That's the challenge we have. So Trish, why don't you start out and just tell us a little bit about North Shore Innoventors and what you're doing for them there?
Sure. So North Shore Innoventors, we are a clean tech and life sciences incubator. We're located about 20 miles north of Boston, in a region that really does a lot of work that's well versed for small scale manufacturing, large scale manufacturing. We have a wide variety of companies here inside the incubator, all generally working on developing their technologies to the point where they're really able to get out and scale. They all tend to be working on their technologies and getting those key market appropriate proof points so that they can, when they graduate from NSIV, go out and actually have real customers, have real growth, and grow. When we work with our companies here, we take them wherever they are. We start with wherever they are in their life cycle, whether they are essentially at more the idea stage, bench stage, and then really start to help them see that technology is only one part of what makes a complete company, what makes something successful, and start to really help them integrate all the other aspects of a business into their own growth plans, including market, including customers, including team, including financing. And technology is only one piece that we measure their progress on. And I try and pair them up with whatever key mentors that they need, that they meet with on a regular basis. We send them to other programs. We help them find financing. We do a wide variety of sort of support, much like Skyra does there in Austin, just in terms of helping them learn to help themselves. More than anything, we're helping them develop the kind of leadership, the kind of strategic skills that allow them to stand on their own feet when they are no longer within the supportive environment of the incubator. I should say that I'm also involved with a number of other sort of entrepreneurship programs here in the sort of Boston area. I've been a mentor for the MIT Venture Mentoring Service for years, and I'm also a mentor for a program called Entrepreneurship for All, sort of known as E4All, which is really working with entrepreneurs in mid-sized cities and in underserved communities to help them develop these sort of economic and entrepreneurship principles. And I see a lot of circular economy ideas coming out of those two populations, much more so than you might see in some of the big tech that we might see.
Yeah, so you had mentioned that your incubator supports predominantly clean tech and life science companies, and I know some blue tech companies as well.
Yep.
I guess the hard question is how do we start to get them thinking on a more circular basis, right? Would they be open to some trainings in what is the circular economy? Why is it important to address this? I know startups are so focused on what they need to do that week, and it's hard for them to take on another layer of difficulty for them. I know for the clean tech companies, they're probably a little bit more aligned to this sort of thinking, but for a life science company or for a blue tech company, maybe not so much. So how do we start to mentor or advise these companies on building some of these strategies into their life cycles? And maybe this is actually a good time to introduce the next slide, comparing sort of curricula for traditional accelerator and incubator programs versus how some of the circular modules might be integrated into that. But just from your quick opinion, Trish, what might be the uptake for some of these companies on introducing circular strategy and getting them to think about their supply chains and their life cycle analysis of their products or services?
I think a lot of that takes place in the sort of mentoring sessions, in the questioning that we do, and in the education that we do of our entrepreneurs and our mentors. It is, when I was listening to Skyra, I wrote down, Austin is really helping to create markets. They are really saying there's a market here for this. And that's the biggest thing that we need to get most of our companies to really think about and understand is where are the market opportunities. And for us, it's as much trying to get our companies to go out there and seek out those market opportunities. So many entrepreneurs come in with the idea of this is going to be my market. This is how it works. This is how people are going to beat my door down as soon as I have my technology proven. And we very, very gently, in as many ways as we can, try and disprove them of that idea by making them go out and actually, oh my God, talk to customers. We are helped in some respect by the NSF and the introduction of their I-Corps program. And we try and get as many of our companies to go through a program like that, or if they've gone through one of them, to continue doing that work. And it is really a matter of saying, have you thought about how you introduce circular economy, circular design, how your entire supply chain works, and including that into your business model and to seeing if there's opportunities there. Now, for some companies like a biotech, which is making a therapeutic or a drug, that's going to be much harder. Because it is much more their efforts going to be around the packaging and the tools and whatnot that they use within their research and within their manufacturing ultimately. But it is important that we get them to start to think about that. And for, I look at the circular economy program modules that you have and really just thinking about how do you introduce that in as a concept of normal business practice? How do you say to them, you need to think about this, and you need to think about how you're going to make a sustainable business, including this, because if you're going to go to Europe, you're going to have to deal with it. It's coming here in the US, who knows how long it will take, but it's coming. And there are market opportunities for certainly in forward-looking cities or forward-looking regions that might have developed new markets. So it's really a matter of questioning and providing opportunity for that. One of the things I really like is the Clean Tech Open of the Northeast, during their accelerator program, make all of their companies go through a whole sustainability module. And it's actually a key component of the judging. You have to be able to say, how does your product affect the environment, reduce greenhouse gases, reduce waste, where's your supply chain at? Even when you're at the idea stage, they make companies do that. They start to put that thinking into their decision-making. And that is, I think, the most important thing is for us as mentors and as guides to start introducing that, because it's going to happen. And the better prepared an entrepreneur is, the better off they will be in terms of making decisions down the road, particularly as they scale.
Yeah, I'm aware of that they're doing on the sustainability side, and maybe that's something that we can take and expand into the incubators as well. I know there are a number of tools out there to measure reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Maybe this is something that some of the incubators can start to use to offer up to their, to make known and offer up to their member companies to start to use these tools, because this also goes to the idea of investment, right? So as all of these companies are fundraising, there are more and more investors that are saying, well, they're going to test them on that. They're going to say,
Absolutely.
well, what kind of greenhouse gas reductions or are you contributing to? I mean, these are all going to be decision makers at some point for the investors. And this is an important point to bring up to the startup companies.
Absolutely. I mean, Clean Energy Venture Group here in Massachusetts has a minimum threshold. They will not even look at you unless you reach a certain level of greenhouse gas emissions over 20, 30 years. And it's megatons. And because they're looking at it, this is an opportunity. And this is the kind of opportunities that we want to invest in. And these are the kinds of opportunities that we want to inspire people to think about. And so, yeah, I think you're seeing more investors coming up with those kind of hard metrics that are meant to, inspire people to think big, to think about big challenges. It is still a struggle regardless. I mean, you're always going to have, particularly for major greenhouse gas reductions, going to have, as Skyra mentioned, all kinds of equipment problems, all kinds of scaling problems, all kinds of, just issues around how are you going to get your costs equal to costs of standard business. And, there really aren't necessarily as many programs in place to support bringing those costs down like they did for years. Luckily we had supports that allowed things like wind and solar to eventually become as cheap as oil and gas. And now those technologies have proven themselves up enough that the levelized cost of energy is, equal or below oil and gas. But it takes a long time. And so I just loved hearing all the things that Austin is doing policy-wise to support these kinds of businesses and these kinds of markets. Because unless you're not going to have, the companies aren't going to, there has to be a market there. You have to be able to make money in order to really prove that circular economies and circular economy companies work. And it's got to be not just the market, but it has to have the policies around in place to help support that. And, it was just like, wow, Austin's got it so together.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and piggyback off of what you said, Trish. I think the aspect of scaling is so important for that as well, because in order for some of these new innovations to really be able to compete with the status quo, of course, if they're kind of niche and small scale, they're going to have a lot more difficulty sort of competing. But as they scale up and become more mainstream, I can imagine that they can reach the kind of economies of scale necessary to start to really put a dent in some of the more traditional ways of doing business that are highly polluting or highly impactful on the environment.
And we do see that. I mean, we have 3 companies right now in the incubator and a 4th that we're trying to bring in that are in some ways trying to develop biodegradable plastics from various waste streams. A couple from sort of mining waste, one from wood waste, one from marine waste, shells, oyster shells and lobster shells and the like. And they're all aiming at very large industries, oil and gas, battery recycling, farming is a big one. But there's opportunities there because many of the large companies, the Cargills and the like, are recognizing that they need to have some kind of, they need to have new products that are more biodegradable, that are, there's regulations coming in Europe around farming and certainly what they're finding here in the North America is that if you can recycle a lot of the agricultural film and it just degrades, you don't have the huge transportation costs for farmers, or it's not necessary. You're going to help those farmers make money and improve their markets, but it just takes time. And It does take that patient capital, and it takes the informed capital to be able to do it. But there are groups out there that do invest in it and are going after those hard techs. But I think we're seeing mainly that the markets that they're going after are fairly large markets with large opportunities. But the equipment costs, the capital costs are just huge. And I think once somebody hits it big, and there's a nice big exit, you will see perhaps more of the long-term investment money come into the space, but it's still being proven out. And you've got to make the business case for it. If you cannot make the business case, you're not going to get the money, which I think is why you've seen a lot of niche markets in the beginning, because it's easier to have a sustainable business sometimes in a niche market. You're not going to be a unicorn, but you can have something that provides good jobs, well-paid jobs, and can have an impact in an area, in a region. And, in some respects, I think states or regions should stop trying to make, home runs and go for those. Sorry, I'm making an analogy for anybody who's in the who's viewing this from Europe. I'm making a baseball analogy, but you really want to be not thinking about making the big, huge play, but just things that advance the game along.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Trish, because that's really what our program focuses on, right? Our startups, our micro enterprises. I know it's not like a codified term by the SBA, but like small business could be up to 500 employees. Like, let's be real. What we're talking about is businesses who have like 3 to 5 employees, if that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And so making sure that we are providing programming to support what you're talking about. How do we help those businesses get to a place of economy of scale? Because it benefits us as a city, because they can employ people, and we're making a stronger economic stability for our entire community at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, I do think that there's, and I know Joan and I have talked about this in the past, there's oftentimes a gap. And we've seen this, and we're trying to address it in some of just our own facility planning here. There's a lot of programs for companies that are, again, 1 to 5 people. There's very, very little programming and support for people that are now, they've graduated from the incubators, they've graduated from accelerators, they're at that scaling. How do you really support them in terms of really their sales, their marketing, developing their systems, all of their operations as they move up? Because that is a completely different set of activities that need to happen if somebody's going to scale successfully. We try and prepare them as much as possible when they're here, saying, you've got to be able to think about this. You're thinking of graduating. You really need to hire a director of operations who's got experience in this, who knows how to take you from bench, to production. It's going to be different. But there's not we just kind of, everybody sort of says, okay, you've made it, great, good luck. And so again, that may take more support from the sort of regional development agencies or the state development agencies, particularly as you start to think about how do we make the supply chain more robust. We've certainly seen what has happened to supply chains that don't have a lot of flexibility in this past year. And yet, so if we had small, there's always the economic argument about which way to go. But nevertheless, there are opportunities there, particularly if you start with that circular economy design set in mind, that can help the economic development side of a region or a state or a city, whatever geographic area that you're trying to impact. And so as an incubator, our responsibility is to try and help them see those opportunities, try and help them bake some of that in a way that makes sense for them and makes sense for wherever they are. And that's the hardest bit, is that you gotta reach them where they are and understand that it's something that they may not take up right away, but it is something that if you can plant the seed, it may bear fruit.
And I have a question, I guess, based on what you're saying, Trish, to both of you and Skyra. Do the two of you think that, and maybe Joan, you have some perspectives as well, given that you work with a lot of incubators, is the focus really to then, help new businesses that are built on circular models, or is it kind of helping existing businesses, transition to circularity? There's kind of age-old debate of, do you get people who are already polluting to stop, or do you support disruptive innovations to then, develop new technologies or materials, et cetera, that can disrupt the industry?
I don't think, as an incubator, I don't think you make that distinction necessarily. If you have, I guess it's, you take them, as I said, you take them where they are and you say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And get them to think about where are those opportunities. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly coming out of MIT or coming out of E4All or Clean Tech Open, that are thinking already more circular. That's part of their own particular mission. And so it's easier for us to get them to think about how do you bake the sort of circular economy into your business model, because they're already committed to that. Ones who aren't, you introduce it and see as much as you can, and you put it in as the economic incentive to be able to do that. Why it makes sense on a business level, why it might make sense on a technology level. But it's got to, as I've said, it's always got to make sense on a company level, so that you can sell enough product that you've got a product that's attractive enough that a lot of people will buy it. If you're not going for something that a lot of people are going to buy, you don't really have a company. And that is the conundrum for any startup, whether they're circular or not. And the only thing that we can do is hope that they is to really hope that they take these principles to heart and see the opportunities to it, and we just have to put those opportunities in front of them.
So I think I have a multi-answer to that, because it's a great question that we are currently thinking about, right? So right now, just as they say in economic development, right, the low-hanging fruit for us is companies who already get it, who already have built a company around circular economy innovations and disruptions, right? Because it's not hard for us to convince them to work with us. They see the value, they're already doing it. So providing programming that really targets those businesses who are already here and working in circular economy makes most sense for us in terms of a resource standpoint. However, right, just like they say, I think in education, the ogre that's throwing the kids into the water, like, are we killing the ogre? Are we pulling the kid? Are we fishing them out downstream, right? We have to do both. So from our standpoint, the next level of our work needs to include, okay, how do we identify companies who are right at the cusp? Like maybe they've incorporated some sustainable practices, right? Maybe they're recycling, maybe they're creating a new product from some byproduct that they have, right? Maybe they're doing some little things. Also, how do we identify those companies who are right on the cusp and design a program around getting them to fully circular? And what are the challenges? Is it an infrastructure challenge? Is it an economic resource challenge? Is it a workforce challenge, right? How do we identify that for those companies so that we're supporting the ones who are already circular and get it, but we're providing a gateway or an entry point for companies who are right on the cusp of transitioning? And then I always go back to policy. the extended producer responsibility bill, if we can get that passed at the federal level, I think will be a game changer in terms of circular economy in this country. I know Maine is already adopting it. There are some other states who are looking into adopting that bill. And I think if we can get some federal legislation passed, or even some state legislation passed, it'll exponentially accelerate our ability to get our country and our economic system more on board in circular economy practices. So for us, it's like a multi-pronged approach. And to Trisha's point, one of the things that we have incorporated into our program is we have designed a circular economy principles 101 class that we go and we teach to incubator and accelerator program cohorts. So we are right at the beginning stages with them saying, like, here's how you provocatype. Here are the things that can happen. Here are materials that are currently in use. Have you been thinking about that? What are the challenges to incorporating that? Does it support your business model? What will change your business model as when you start incorporating circular practices, right? What changes? And how do you create a really good USP as a result of that? So we're 4 people, but we're really trying to approach it from all of the different levels of really ensuring that circular economy becomes the standard here in Austin.
Yeah, I love that fact that you actually have a module that you can take to an accelerator, you can take to an incubator and challenge the folks in it. You know, entrepreneurs will often rise to a challenge. If you can spark their creative thinking and get them to see it as something that they can incorporate into the things that they're passionate about, then then they start to take it on.
Yep.
If it's just like, oh God, I've got to go and do this. You know, but again, you hope that something takes seed. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually great that you mentioned that, Sky and Trish, because that's Joan and I and Umberto have been thinking about exactly that. Like, how do we kind of help accelerators and incubators and different programs around the country incorporate circular economy thinking into like their existing modules, and this kind of slide is sort of what we envision, and that's amazing, Skyra, that the city of Austin also has an initiative to do the same, and it'd be great to kind of collaborate on working on something to provide those kinds of resources, because I think as you all mentioned during this whole discussion, there's a lot of power in supporting entrepreneurs and businesses who are circular at different stages to really be able to implement that concept and grow. And accelerators and incubators are perfectly positioned to kind of provide those support systems. So how can we target them as the kind of audience to almost build circular economy programming into what they already do, so that they can help the huge network of startups and entrepreneurs that they're already kind of working with in different parts of the country. So yeah, it's amazing to see the kind of potential that something like that could have. And if there is some kind of standardized set of resources that they can rely on and build on and kind of share and expand on further, seems like it would be sort of a great resource for them.
And honestly, the other thing you have to be able to do is say to folks, here's the changes that are coming. So if a state is taking on sustainability policies or circular economy or design policies, people need to know that. They need to know that these are going to be either constraints or opportunities, or both. And how do you plan and design for that? How do you turn that challenge into an opportunity? How do you adjust your business model for that? I mean, it is incumbent for so many entrepreneurs, they don't think about regulations and policies that way, if they even think about them at all.
Right.
Certainly in the biotech, all they know is what they need to do in terms of getting through the FDA, and not necessarily about other things that they might be able to do that can enhance their business model. And so it is important just to get people excited by the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's actually something that we're hoping to do. I'll let sort of Joan explain this in more detail, but in November, we're planning to sort of involve different organizations to kind of present this module and hopefully get them excited about introducing circular economy into the work they do.
Yeah, so we do have a number of different workshops throughout the year that we present to our incubator member network. And we've got one coming up in November just around this. We thought it was a strategic time to do this. And it is around circular economy, and it's really, our workshops are really designed to bring in key people to facilitate this discussion, but to really have the incubator managers active in the discussion about, you know, how this can really implement changes that they'd like to make in the way that they're supporting their member companies. So we're going to be doing one in November, end of November, introducing the concept of the circular economy for one thing, and the importance of adopting circular solutions. Shyam is actually going to take part in this with us, and he will talk about some of the university's research support, the research that supports some of these strategies that you come across in your PhD program. And then we're going to talk about what the investors are looking for, and certainly just back to the program that we're having for our international cohort. Why do you think the corporates are participating in this? Because they're looking for new technologies that they can implement into their businesses to advance their business strategies. And so, you know, a lot of these early stage companies can be the new technologies that Dow and Kohler and DuPont and Saint-Gobain are looking for. So this is all very important for the companies to know. And certainly circular product design. We'll have someone come in and talk, probably IDEO, to talk about design. You know, there's design for manufacturability, there's design for circularity. So designing your products from the beginning to address these issues at the end of their life cycle. And then, you know, and then really getting a conversation going with the incubators and accelerators about how can we start to implement this? Does it make sense for your incubator? Where are you going to find challenges? Are you interested or not interested in doing this? And having a real frank discussion about this. So that's our next step. And we're going to be inviting not only the incubators and accelerators in our small network, but opening this up to anyone who would like to take part. So we're looking forward to it.
You know, it's what's interesting, Joan. I was on a call yesterday with someone from Ørsted, very large company. They're looking to be essentially like zero carbon emissions at a certain point. I thought I had written down what year, but I didn't. You know, large companies, they've got these strategies in place, and they are looking for technologies that are going to help them to meet those goals. And it is important and it is incumbent upon us as incubator managers to make our companies ready for investment and for acquisition, and in a way that helps that gives them an incentive to help these companies meet the goals, or they're not going to necessarily work with them. You know, it's again, one of those things that we have to constantly talk about with our companies early, so that they think about this early when they're still just trying to prove out their technologies.
Yeah. So one of the best things I've seen so far is what Cleantech Open is doing and having that sustainability model, because, you know, they're really pushing that on the company to you know,
Like that.
make that happen.
Yeah, and hopefully a sort of similar thing for the circular economy, and kind of introducing those kinds of resources can provide the right support as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're getting close to the end of our time. I wanted to thank you all for this wonderful conversation, and yeah, hope that you all can also participate in the workshop in November, and see how we could kind of build this out further and get more organizations across the U.S. and North America involved in these kinds of discussions so that we can really make that transition here.
Excellent. Thank you all. It was great and inspiring for me.
Thank you. It was,
Very much.
yeah, it's fun.
Okay. See you at the next event. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.